Sanbonani, greetings once again. ABBA AYALEW AMLAK, heruse Kgangkgolo silo samanzi uzinyo lengwenya. Uboya bengwe, ubusuke ezantsi emalwandle. Utshaya ingwe lo ukuthi uMandlana udla umvubu ukhipha utyete. Ithole likaNdlambe, izibulo likaRharhabe. Bakwethu mhleli lana ke nomfowethu. Uzawusichaza ke yena ke the God, the black pen. Ukuthi uze njani azabe uNkulunkulu weballpen emnyama. Welcome. Sizoxoxa namhlanje about a whole lot of things, but before we get into it, this?
No, I'm honored to be here. This will be officially our second sit down, I believe. Igama PENUEL AMLAK. Mphuma ngazalelwe eMadadeni township eNewcastle in KwaZulu Natal. Omlotshwa ke la ngiphuma khona oZitho oNtumbeza, oNdima, oSholoza, oLobi. Umama yena ke became mixed race because ubaba wakhe was an Indian man who Saint Chota Amin with umama wakamyaka, ugogo, my maternal grandmother. Bona ke baphuma eKvukeni township close to Ladysmith eMnambithi. My father comes from Mpophomeni township, which is the township of Howick, close to Pietermaritzburg. To keep it brief, man, I was born and raised in Newcastle, went to go and study tertiary in Makhanda today, in Grahamstown, in the Eastern Cape. I've got a very soft spot, by the way, for the people of the Eastern Cape, AmaXhosa as they are called. In particular, I need to give a shout out, man, to Babu Zanemvula, Zakes. Some of his literature, man, specifically The Heart of Redness, one of my favorite works, and made me fall deeply in love with the Eastern Cape, but also made me develop a serious frustration with the people of the Eastern Cape for how they failed to develop it into what it's meant to be. From there, I came to Johannesburg, University of Johannesburg, doing my honors in accounting. I'd leave work, working in banking. I'd become an entrepreneur. I'd have failed businesses. And after the COVID lockdown period, I'd do like introspection to figure out what do I actually want for my life. And the best way to do that is to look into retrospect into, in your life, which are the things that brought you joy. Where you felt you were at peace, and where you were seriously happy. And into injabule nentokozo enkulu was meeting people that I feel have wisdom and knowledge, where we have stimulating conversation, where ngiyafunda, you know, and I'm forced to introspect and learn. And then mangsensuka lapho go and share that information with the rest of the world. That's where people like yourself have to meet in my life. We'd have the privilege and the blessing of ukuhlala on the panel show together, where you blame me off. Even though it was your fault, we were not Amazulu abelungu. Not my words. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell, man. My online persona is PENUEL the Black Pen. It comes all the way back from when I started writing books. I've got 13 books that I self-published. And at some point I made mixtapes. I don't know if I'll ever go back to music, but I was also known as PENUEL the Black Pen as a rapper and a singer. And my art as well. I signed PENUEL the Black Pen because I actually draw, I sketch quite well in black pen. And when I decided to get online and speak, it was like, yo, PENUEL the Black Pen. And it's kind of stuck. It's a nice play on words. I'm black, as people can see, but it's more than that, you know. And yeah, it's my voice and it's what people have come to know me as. So I'm honored to be here and I'm quite excited about the things we came to discuss.
Yeah, man. Nyabo, thank you.
Thank you
For honoring us with your time and sharing the space with us. I picked up on something you said and I was very intrigued. Failed businesses and failed attempts at that, and that led you to look back at yourself. I think, personally, before we get into anything we want to talk about, I was touched by what you said. I believe, personally, failure is the greatest teacher. I believe. Being a farmer, I've had many animals die in my hands. I've had many crops die in my hands. And it's because of those mistakes that I got to know how to prevent those deaths in future, or as time continued. I think, and I sincerely believe that failure is a great teacher. If you're gonna succeed in everything you do all the time, you're gonna get used to the rhythm of success, and then when failure hits, you won't have a reference point. The biggest mistake I've seen in Abantu is that when failure hits, they give up. How did you get over that?
Yazi bengihleli nobaba uSizwe Nxasana a couple of days ago. He's got a very illustrious business career. He was the 6th chartered accountant, 6th black chartered accountant in South Africa, the first one being Professor Wiseman Kgangkgolo. He'd go on to build the first black auditing firm, Sizwe and Company. And then he'd move through life where he was the CEO of Telkom, CEO of First Rand, which is a huge banking conglomerate, mostly of Afrikaner executives and shareholders. And later on, himself and his wife, Dr. Judy Dlamini, celebrated businesswoman in her own right, would go and build future nation schools. I think they've got 2 campuses now. Afrocentric, very futuristic. And in the conversation that I had no Baba, one of the things we spoke about was failure as a learning tool. And I referenced to Robert Kiyosaki of Rich Dad Poor Dad, where he was the first to reference that there's something wrong with our education system that discourages failure.
They don't teach us how to fail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How to fail intelligently, doing your best, how to study that failure, and then how to bounce back from it. Then that you should see Ilwan is alpha, but it's not ish Ilwan if farming is not for me. It's Ilwan is alpha. Why? I was doing my best, but where did I get wrong? Where did I get things wrong? And then moving forward, how do I fix it for info that comes moving forward? As long as we don't have failure as part of our just the way we live, and more specifically in the schooling system, we're never going to have people that are innovative and invent. The story of Thomas Edison, whether true or not, and the light bulb, was the story of 1,000 failed experiments.
And one success.
Because of history, because we've had people come before us, I've studied a lot of this stuff growing up. So it never made sense to me why I should fear failure. When you try something new, we speak about children. Children fall.
All the time.
The first time a child falls, you don't say, maybe walking is not for me. You're going to try this thing 5 times. You get up and you're like, no, clearly I'm doing something wrong. And you find your balance. And when I went into business, I was lucky that I'd done a lot of research and I'd found out that failure is just a part of business. So I had that advantage. You're very right, and this becomes in depth for genius and those things. They become so fragile. All I've ever had in my life is straight A's. All I've had in my life is everyone approves of. The first time they have their heart broken, the first time they fail, they go into deep depression. And some of them can't get out.
Suicidal rates
100%
of the intelligent ones, the clever ones, the genius ones at school is high.
There's a blessing in being dumb. when you start at school and you're failing and you're not doing well, you're forced to realize that the world won't just give me things on a silver platter.
I have to work.
And you're forced to now figure out, is this for me? Or do I find something new? And you find a lot of the kids that didn't do well at school are forced to face real life sooner.
No, but then they hire us in their businesses.
Of course.
They hire the smart ones in their businesses.
That's Kiyosaki again, who says A students work for B students. Or C students, something like that. I think B students work in government. A students work for C students.
For C, D, F students.
And the B students work in government.
Exactly.
So I was lucky in that. Look, I will tell you, failure is not easy. We can sit and glorify and quote now, but especially when you've done your best, it makes you doubt self. And it puts you in a space, especially if you've never been there, that is foreign, and where you are ashamed and afraid of the world. And you ask yourself, hey,
Izanayo. Because now that worry leads you to a point. And I believe that that point is weakness. If you carry a fear, I call it the triple weapons of the devil. Fear, worry, and weakness. Yay! If you fear failure, for example, you're going to worry about failure. And therefore, you're not going to have the strength to attempt anything. That is a point of weakness. And a lot of us make our decisions based on a point of weakness. Already you go into a partnership, a business, a relationship with the idea that already you are seeing the finish line, the doom, the end. So it's not about the relationship, it's not about the partnership, it's not about the business that we are attempting. It's about, let's see how it's going to end.
Yeah.
Is it either going to end at that point or at that point? Is it going to end today or is it going to end next year? But already from the start, because of fear, worry, and weakness, already we got into this thing. And that reality becomes our reality.
Sure.
The fear of failure and the fear of the unknown, which leads me to the first question that we will talk about now. I coined it, Ngati, what is race? But let's actually look at it from this perspective. Let's talk about the fear of race. And that which comes with this fear of race. Black, white, Chinese, this. But this, what is race and what is the fear of race that keeps it perpetuated?
One of the 13 books I wrote is called Fuck Fear. There were some people that didn't like that French, so I changed one of the versions to Fight Fear. I speak about things like fear of the unknown, fear of failure. I follow up later on with a book called The Rise and Fall of the NSC, which was one of my businesses, because too many people write stories of successful businesses. Not enough people speak about businesses that have failed, so that we can all learn from the failures. The language I speak now is English. I did not create it, it is not mine. I may speak isiZulu sometimes, we may proud Afrikaans. A lot of these languages we didn't create, but some of them are more aligned to our people because they were functional to the people that came before us. English is a mixed masala language that has borrowed from so many. Even today it borrows, because words like pizza, pasta, lasagna, Italian, as an example. Touché, déjà vu, those are French, but they're all in the English dictionary. So when you ask what is race, you'd be asking me what is that English word?
In fact, Donga is an African language. And it's part of the English vocabulary.
There's an animal called an aardvark. Aardvark, which is, race was defined as far as I've been taught. My knowledge is limited. Race was defined by colonizers that came here with intentions. And from there, they created laws to follow on from their definition of race. And what they would define race as would be the color of your skin, the texture of your hair, who your ancestors, forefathers are, where you come from, your belief system, etc., etc. And then they would formalize that, at least in the South African space, under apartheid laws. I believe in America they had the same race laws. We had slash blancas here, Europeans, no black people, etc. And we find ourselves in this conundrum we have today where we're still fighting that definition and the laws that they set. We appreciate the people that are destroying that in the form of mixed children. We haven't addressed a form of mixing which came with trauma, being the colored nation in South Africa. But in a nutshell, to define the English word race, it would be that. On a more deeper level, though, outside of this English word would be the differentiation of human beings. Which then, if we remove race theory, we then get a chance to choose how we define that. Do we define it by what we call a tribe or cultural group, and where does that come from? Do we define it by a family name, your father? Do we define it by your geography, where you guys are mostly based? Do we define it by the beliefs that you have, that, we are the people of the river, or we are the people of the sun, or we are the people of a man with a white beard who played with clay and made us, and therefore we are these people? And then we take it from there, and the world is shifting in that regard. But to answer your question, Jay, yeah, I'd say that's race to me. I don't know what your thoughts would be.
No, Mlotshwa, uyibeka kahle. And I hear you, and I agree with a lot of what you say. I think this is my personal view of race, outside the race theory, because we need to understand, Bagwethu, race was never something that was spoken about in terms of color now, skin texture. Race was never spoken about in those terms since the beginning of time. There was a point in history where politically it suited a certain group
100%.
to identify themselves as white and another group as black.
Yeah.
For political reasons. But here's the thing, I've got a problem with a race from that perspective. We've studied history, we've studied so many the avenues of knowledge, and it's quite interesting to study the histories of the so-called European nations. You will discover that in their histories, what we know, and this may be controversial, what we know as the British royal family today are descendants of black people like me and you. As far as Queen Elizabeth I, there is a contestation about her identity that is still going on right now. Was she white? Was she black? Because there are pictures of Queen Elizabeth I as a black woman. And there are later pictures of Queen Elizabeth I as a white woman. But which is true? If you read the diaries of the people at the time, if you read the histories of the time, a lot of the people identified Queen Elizabeth as fair-skinned, dark, right? There was Queen Sophia, Princess Sophia of Portugal, who is also a grandmother to Queen Elizabeth. She was a black woman. To me, that says the British monarch is a black family. To me, if their ancestors were black and they mixed with a certain white family, I won't mention its name, but the result of that is that we have Caucasian-looking people. Now, if I'm going to be on the race theory and say now, white against black, am I going to perceive the British royal family as my enemies because they look white but their ancestry is black? switch the flip or flip the switch, we come back to us here. I mentioned the last time we were sitting together that there are certain families, I won't mention which nation because I don't want to touch sensitivities. But I mentioned that certain families in a certain nation were descendants of a certain individual named Henry Francis Finn. And this is not only in that particular nation. This happened everywhere, not only in South Africa. You mentioned that we haven't addressed the certain group of people that came about through trauma, specifically in the South African context, but as much as in the Latino context, as much as in the Mesoamerican context, as much as in the Chinese context, when the Mongolians got there and the Europeans, the British got there later on, and everything that happened. So this is a common thing that happened all over the world. My question is now, are we going to base our narratives? And this is not me saying I'm denying the history that there was oppression, there was slavery, there was this, there was that. Let's be honest now, me and you sitting here, did we not do that to ourselves?
Is that for me to answer?
It's a question.
The dark-skinned people you speak of are normally labeled the Moors in Europe, of which they would run empires and control empires and build empires and expand. And later on, those empires over time would then look white. There's a theory that, I don't know, 1 in 10 people, 1 in 100 people have still got Genghis Khan's blood in them, which means we're the descendants of Genghis Khan, huge ruler of the Mongolian Empire. The question you're asking is rooted in the assumption that we embrace race theory. And I want to take it a step back to a question I asked. It may have been Mkhulun years, I'm not sure. The whole world currently, because we all are subject to the same propaganda, the whole world collectively agrees that life started in Africa. Whether we'll say it started in what we call Central Africa, going up north, Ethiopia, Somalia areas, or we're going to say it started with Zaluyelanga, Adam's Calendar, Cradle of Humankind, Krugersdorp. The whole world, Caucasians, Chinese, Indian, Latino, whatever you want to call, have all agreed with this propaganda, if it is false, that life started here. So my question was, does that not mean that white people, Chinese, Indian, were all started here as black? So we wouldn't even need to ask the question of your ancestors were black, because but we were all
at
black.
some point.
And if we are to agree that we all started in Africa, and if we get all these groups to agree that we all started black because we were in Africa, what would be the cause of then people changing physically, their hair, their diets? And some of the theories become climate, some of the theories become diet. The food you eat affects
your body.
even externally how you look, etc., etc. There is the suggestion by the Nation of Islam. This I read from the autobiography of Malcolm X, as told to Alex Haley. The idea of a scientist taking a group of black Africans to an island, fiddling with them, and then these creatures we know as white people come today. But that's a theory. The main theory is that white people are descendants of Neanderthals, cavemen, as it were. If we all hold on to the same propaganda, we do not need to ask the question of, is the British family not black? Number one. If we do hold on to the theory, then we go back to one of the initial points you raised, Uguti. At a time when the elite have always existed. Whether you're taller, stronger, you're a better hunter. And as the elite became formalized with the structures we have today, problems started emerging of people trying to encroach on the resources and the land and the largesse of the elite. And they needed structures to manage these people away from. Part of it being building nations. Part of it being building cultural groups or tribes. We are the French, we are the English, the Anglos, we are the... Part of it was this thing of race. And in the divide and conquer, they realized that we already have a problem of people that look like us, Caucasian on Caucasian. That's why you have world wars and the splitting of the nations. And we need these people to stay away from our eliteness. And not only that, but there's a chance that the darker skinned of our ancestors are also going to come here. So we're going to play them against each other. That's where you get Tubas, that's where you get a white boss, that's where you get all this racism where the elite, whether white or black today, use race as a tool to ensure that the middle class and the poor of whatever hue fight each other. And they build this buffer, specifically with white people. Yeah, well, the South African context is probably the best for us, where you've got white Afrikaners who are amapoisa, who are ubas, the supervisor. Kom hier, kaffer. They act as a buffer between the masses of black to keep them oppressed. And they think they're good because they live in a better house than a four-room. But they're not living in the house of, let's say, as an example, an Oppenheimer or a Rupert, as an example. So it's like you see these black people in BEE. Hey, folk, you're right, eh? These black, but you're like, Baba, me and you, Gamla, we're the same. On the other hand, you find the elite of Wodaki who have now been brought to the table doing the same.
They surpassed the border now. Okay.
Sinyazi B, ningavuma belungu nathi la hey yazi uqinisile hey umholi wethu. But umholi wenu nomholi wabo live in the same area, their children go to the same school, and they keep playing the same game of race. Not because it's a real thing, but because it was a manufactured thing.
This is where my question now comes in. My follow-up question to you is then, and you just answered it, race was a manufactured propaganda system to buffer the perceived lower in society from the higher ups.
Yeah.
But now, I usually say this with my students. What if the higher ups are black people that are keeping other black people fighting white people in order for them not to interfere with their wealth?
There's the theory of the original Hebrews. Ronald Dalton Jr. is here in South Africa now. He's an African American, black American, and he's very big on Hebrews to Negroes as a documentary of that the original Jewish people. You know, when we speak about the children of Abraham, Moses. Again, if the current Jewish nation today has an issue with the idea of the original Hebrews being black, they would have to agree that they disagree that life started in Africa. So they would need to go against generally known
but in
science.
Their books, it says they had contact with Africa in their origins.
Not even contact. If Jewish scholars, if Jewish historians, if Jewish biologists agree that life started in Africa, they would argue that Adam and Eve started in Africa. The Garden of Eden was in Africa. And they would have to acknowledge that Abraham, to some degree, was either an African or very close to the African people, and then maybe his families moved.
Well,
and would that mean that they were dark-skinned?
If you look at history, 1945, 1948, when the nation of Israel was established, there was an Operation Moses that happened, where they took aeroplanes to Ethiopia, some to the Congo, and not so famously, a plane came to South Africa to collect more than 50,000 people. Collectively, from Ethiopia, they are called the Falasha, Beta Israel. Beta Israel means the house of Israel. So they were collected from Ethiopia in their thousands to populate Israel. A couple were collected from the Congo. A couple were collected from Nigeria, from the Igbo tribe. And some were collected right here, Malemba. And those people now have populated Israel, though not so publicly or publicized in the media, but it's a history that we know. It happened. This is why even the Lemba inventor now have this connection with Israel. You understand? Now, for them to come and fetch these black Africans and populate them in the nation of Israel as a way to re-establish the nation of Israel means that they do acknowledge their origins as black people. They do acknowledge their Africanness. They do acknowledge who their ancestors are. So the Jews are black. And if the Jews are black,
the Zulu are white, now the Jews are black. It's a mess.
You said it. You said the common origin is Africa. Therefore, the common origin of everyone is black. You said it. Who am I posting in? But it means Oppenheimer is black.
So, again,
it means Ackerman is black.
So this would be for the Jewish community to come in and disagree.
It's for them to disagree
if they wish. And this is not us claiming or hypothesizing or whatever. We're just saying, based on what we've been taught, the same propaganda as history and history as everyone, they would need to come and counter that and explain why. What is interesting though, so your question was, what if the elite are black? And normally when people say elite around the world, they'll be like, yeah, Jewish people have money. That's why I decided to go to that reference and the Hebrews, to be like, if we're going to say the elite are black, outside of the British royal family, you may find that even the wealthiest Jewish people have got Hebrew black ancestry. What would be fascinating for the Jewish community to ponder on is why generally they've been persecuted, number one, whether it be in Germany or for the longest time with Abu Shylock, the Jew, being treated as second-class citizens everywhere they go. And also why they have an affinity to oppressed peoples and being close to them. In the South African context, it would be Jewish entrepreneurs that would work in townships, in business. When you look at the American concept, the formalization of hip-hop, with Rick Rubin, is Jewish. When you look at Jewish kids today, they love bling. They love materialism. And you have to ask, where does that come from and why in certain places are Jewish people seen as darker skinned white people? It could be that.
Joe Slovo.
Yeah. And you've had Jewish people fight for liberation in various places. Proudly so. So again, it's questions we're asking that would be for them to be like, you guys are right. We actually think we either have black blood or we are black people that have manifested in various ways. Maybe as we moved as black people, we got shunned. But in our getting shunned, we'd already bred with the Caucasians up north. But our lineage actually comes from here. And this is why we look like this. And who knows, for Abu Netanyahu, this could be the argument that actually wins the black support for them to be like, guys, we are black people, to be honest. And just like all other black people, our land was taken, and now you guys are calling us an apartheid state to Palestine. But we are also black people that also have a right to live.
At some point, the landmass of Palestine, all the way to India, was considered Africa. It was under an Ethiopian king, or an Egyptian king, or an African king, to put it like that. The Indus Kush region of India,
which is where the name India comes from the Indus River.
From the Indus River.
Yeah.
And Indus Kush coming from the name of the Kushite in Africa.
Yeah.
You have the Gangas, you have the Dravidians, who are the blackest Indians.
Lava people.
They are blacker than me and you. You know?
Sure.
You go out to China, you get the Ainu, you go to Japan, you get the original samurai there,
black.
They're all black.
Even in Russia, people like Pushkin.
You understand?
Those were dark-skinned people.
Those were dark-skinned people. You go to Australia, you find the Maori there, the Aborigines.
Correct.
New Zealand, you find the Maori there. these are black people who populated these areas, and over time, with mixing with other people, we have the races that we have today. My question then is, holding on to Big Border, Henry Verwoerd, and the implementers of the system of apartheid and the implementers of slavery, holding on to that intellectually now for our own development, holding on to our past and basing our knowledge systems and our life experiences on our past, does that really benefit us as a people?
I'm going to say something controversial. It's my turn. I think one nearly scored much. My controversy. I think the world needs division. I don't think the world needs unity. The famous story of Babylon, the splitting. For me, division allows for innovation. It allows for what's meant to be healthy competition. Our football can only be strong if the rivalry between Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates or with Sundowns is fierce. And that is a division on football club lines. It's not meant to be malicious. It's not meant to be destructive. It's meant to stimulate. When your parents say your brother is faster than you, they are planting a seed of saying it's a challenge. We want you to be fast as well, or maybe even faster than him. Then it's meant to be healthy competition, not Cain and Abel. I'm going to kill my brother so that I become the fastest. No. Because I believe the world needs division to thrive, the question then becomes, is race the best division? Or should we philosophically be looking at nuance?
New divisions.
And that's the conversation I would like to have. Uguti, race ayisasizi. And as umhlaba uqhubeka uya phambili, I think abanye abelungu sebeyabona nabo. Nabanye abantu abamnyama, but no one is brave enough to say remove this thing because of fear. But if we remove fear, if we remove race, Amapunu ask, what is going to happen to us? And the question is, who is us? No, we the Afrikaner. You're like, are you comfortable with your classification? Do you know where it comes from? Because if you are Afrikaner, you are African. You are African. You are African. We've seen your women and their curvature. Okay. We're definitely African.
Your language was coined by black people.
Your language was created here.
Your culture was created by black people.
You love the land, as an example. You love being outdoors. So, can we create a new one? And can we sit and make sure that we don't lose the essence of the things you value, but we let go of the things that we must agree are bad, which is the unnecessary oppression of certain people just because they are dark, or the formalization of shafting productive people of certain parts of the land with no real plan except to hoard something that you can't even fully enjoy because there are so few of you. So I think we need to reclassify. This includes things like the borders. There are many people that believe in the borders. Some of them then hold on to territory, which I even before the borders was, as an example. Let's all agree that we respect territory. Are we happy with the territorial dimensions we were given? If the answer is no, then let us remove them, abstract, without removing, but then let us then do structural changes. And what does it look like to respect territory, but to ensure that you still have to ask for permission? Type of situation. We do that with nations, we do that with language, we do that, we are lazy like South Africa, where we acknowledge isiZulu, isiXhosa, isiSwati, isiNdebele. We acknowledge them. We are lazy to say, let us merge them and have isiNguni because they are similar. Why are we still holding? What does it serve you to say, I speak isiXhosa, ngikhuluma isiZulu? Because ukhuluma isiZulu kodwa uyahlupheka, ukhuluma isiXhosa kodwa uyahlupheka. Lo ukhuluma isiZulu kodwa unomnotho, unokwebo obuthize. The next person and what are you holding on to and is it serving you? Because if you're going to tell me I'm proudly Ndebele, almost like the elite, I'm proudly white because being white means I become rich. I get to live in suburbia, I get a superior education. But if Uba Ndebele is beneath being Uba Umguni, maybe elevate as an example. if ukuba umZulu is better than being umnguni, does it give you access to the Xhosa nation who refuse to buy from your shop because you're like umZulu, and they're like, well, Tina Sabangoni, Tina, we are part of a broader, therefore businesses. It's almost how white people in South Africa will mischievously use the South African brand to get that proudly South African, but it's the Springboks, it's your team, why are you angry, EFF? Because it serves them for you to support South African. But at another time it serves them, you know, but you're not an Englishman or an Afrikaner, so I don't know why you're here. But I thought I was South African. No, that's only when the Springboks are playing. So we need to redefine the divisions, and in the redefinitions, reclassifications, they must serve us. So to what you're saying, we must upsell. So one of Kgangkgolo 2-1 might just scored in a controversy. One of the other things I speak about is impregnating white women.
Oh,
Right,
oh,
right, Mkhulu.
hey, damn, ulethela umuthi.
Right, la. Qhubeka.
Uthi, hey, qhubeka.
So you've got a situation where
Lensizwe ithile. Yomithisa belungu.
Meghan Markle is deemed black. I believe she's mixed race, but we've seen her mother. Her mother is black. Prince Harry is comfortable to breed
With her.
into a black woman, and your argument would be, well, these were always their people anyways, so it wouldn't be shocking. In terms of upselling, we speak about, I think it's called hypergamy, where a woman marries up, marries a man of class, of money, so that her family is elevated. If our argument as Abantu Abamnyama is that white people own the land, and we cannot negotiate for them to share the land, the easiest way to access the land they have taken is to plant seeds in the current owners of the land, being the white woman, so that our children then inherit the land through their mothers.
How Chantel Tombiam, I love you, Cinderella one. How?
The number of, and this I find intriguing, sorry, going back to the Jewish community, the number of what we call white Jewish women that have relations with black men
is staggering.
to give us Drake,
It's staggering.
to give us Doja Cat, very comfortably, and per Jewish definition, a child takes the lineage of the mother, which means Drake is Jewish, which means Doja Cat, angazi kamalala asis loya. Because of Baba. Yeah, she's Jewish. Yeah, and it's all Crocodile were doing important nation building work. And I'm saying, and this is how I define racism, at least for myself. When a white man comes up, Ben, I'm not racist. Allow me to plant in your daughter. You will allow any random white boy out there of your daughter's choosing to plant in her, yet you will not allow me, who you deem, you respect me, we're on the same level, you're so smart. I've seen you, hey, you're very sharp. If I'm very sharp, let me plant in your daughter as a way of nation building and as a way of sharing the land. Don't give me the land, I don't want it. Keep the land. Allow me to plant seeds in your real land, being your daughter. Because I can tell you now, for the white man, he holds his children at a higher esteem to the land.
Exactly.
He would rather give the land than his daughter. So, if you really value me as a man, as a person, because we're both saying land is here, and we are human. If you claim to value me, it's what we've always done historically, including in Europe.
Yeah, it's been happening.
Romeo and Juliet, different nations would come together and say, look, we are bringing our daughter, we're bringing our son, for no other reason but to create unity between the kingdoms. We would do it in Africa, where different tribal groups, especially if we're fighting over something like territory, would, okay, since I'm saying I want the river and you want the river, because we're fighting, I will give you my son, you'll give me your daughter, and
we both share the river.
I want the river. It doesn't matter, because the children will be like, this is our river anyways. Yeah. And we have tied ourselves with blood, with lineage and whatever. We can get as angry as we want. This river will be owned by our descendants. So if we're claiming nation building, and look, we don't speak about these stories, but these are the stories that need to be told. Musi Maimani planted in a white woman. Sia Kolisi has planted in a white woman.
Tokyo
Sekhwale is planted in a white woman, and we may not speak about it now. Today we have the Shoma Josies, the Dr. Sizwe Mpofu Walshers, the Trevor Noahs. Trevor Noah can go and claim land in Switzerland because Umawake went and said, I will let a man plant in me. And yes, it looks like colonization, but watch what's going to happen here. Dr. Sizwe Mpofu Walsh today has a what? A PhD from Oxford with a Xhosa father, Mpofu, from the Eastern Cape. He can go and argue, but my mother is of this lineage. I have a stake in the British Empire like anyone else. So if you speak about the colonization of Africa, I'd like to think my ancestors were also involved. But if you speak of the oppression of the African people, my ancestors were also involved. So I'm here to bridge the gap.
To bridge the gap, yeah. To heal the wound.
So it should be a project, not out of malice, not like the colored community, where many black women were raped to give birth. There may have been mutual relations somewhere, but because these colored children are not given a status, we assume that the woman, not out of their free will, but there needs to be a concerted effort by, look, it doesn't have to be black men and white women. It can be, I'm just using it as a, because I know how sensitive the woman thing is, especially for white people. It could be black women and white men, where we're saying we need to if we claim we want to build a nation and redefine, then let's do it intentionally and have white women, white men coming and saying, look, I'm sorry about what the ancestors did, my forefathers, as a token of reconciliation, as a token of may we please make children. And you can call the children Amandla, Nkululeko, Uhuru, whatever. You can be like this child, and you raise the child to be like
understand that.
You are the symbolism of the unity of this. It cannot be that the symbolism is Patrice and Cyril's children going to the same schools as Rupert and Oppenheim, and we say this is unity. Let us come together and truly merge into one flesh and show, and we'll say this child you're seeing here representing us on global stages is the Real Truth and Reconciliation Commission, where the white man, the white woman, the black man, the black woman came together and they said, we will intentionally, we may not stay together, but we will intentionally, out of love and out of wanting to build a nation, make future generations to show that we have extended the olive branch. Otherwise, if we're not willing to do that,
it's not yet true.
It'll never be. And they'll always find ways to mastermind.
Me personally, I know a lot of people in South Africa had said, I'm a sympathizer with the whites and because of my stance so good, but this racist agenda must end. I call it reverse racism, you know? Like, when is it gonna end? White, black, white, black. Like, we're living together right now. My neighbors are white. And I was away this weekend. Something happened here. It was my white neighbor who called me and said, no, I'm seeing something happening in your yard. I know you're not here. So I'm just letting you know I'm going to go in and shoot if there's a problem.
Out of concern?
Out of concern. For my safety, my property, and the people who are here. Because I was not away the weekend. So my neighbor saw commotion happening. A white man came in and called me. I'm going into your yard, and if necessary, I'm going to shoot. Right? If there's any problem. I cannot fight with that man or hate that man because of what his grandfather did, willingly or unwillingly. I'm a supporter of harmony. Let's get to know each other. Let's be neighborly. I've never looked at it from that perspective. I think that for me personally, I hear it, I see where it's going, and I support it. But for me, I'll still have to work on myself.
It is not for you and I to embark on this project or for us to endorse it. It is for us to table it on the list of potential solutions as an I believe, look, there's a lot of issues with Nigerian people around the world for very valid reasons. There are a lot of Nigerian people who commit crimes. There are a lot of Nigerian people who travel to certain countries, get in there in weird ways, but part of the fear that will not be raised is the idea of Nigerians impregnating the local women, which happens in South Africa. It's one of the things that upsets South African men. And the second thing is from there then claiming resources that were meant to be. If a Nigerian man comes to South Africa, impregnates a South African woman, through the woman and the child, he now has access to an RTP house, access to a 350 grant, his child gets access to a child grant, his child gets access to free schooling, himself, his wife, his child get access to free healthcare. And in that way, just that act of impregnating a South African, and he gets citizenship to marriage. Just from that act alone, he accesses resources that the black South African would have said, but these were meant to be for us because of the legacies of apartheid. Now you can imagine that mentality going into what we Palestinians will do. We will send our women to Israel to go and be friendly with Jewish men.
And then
stop fighting for the land. We'd like to host parties where we're sending the most beautiful Palestinian woman, where the Jewish man cannot control himself. And we're like, the rest will sort itself out. As a strategy, we speak about biological warfare, we speak about propaganda, we speak about marketing, we speak about race, we speak about tribe. It's biological warfare.
Yeah.
It's real biological warfare.
Umnotshwa le militancy yakho isemakamera nabelungu. Like, I'm still trying to get around that concept.
We were speaking about upselling from Swati to Nguni. So if you want to do that and you say,
I understand it.
White people, Jewish people, Muslims have the wealth, you can go work with them, definitely. You can partner with them where possible. But there's something stronger than that. And it's this.
Even in an African context, Ma saying, this is me trying to make sense of it in my own head. When two clans are either clashing or trying to just reinforce themselves and make themselves stronger, marriage was always the best.
Correct.
Two kingdoms, like His Majesty, Zwelithini, he took Intombi Yaseswati and they gave birth to the current king. So now these two kingdoms are kind of one.
Misuzulu consults with his uncle on a regular basis. He was given a Swati wife as well.
Yeah.
I think there's issues there, but
it's the oneness of these two kingdoms that we are trying to get to. Oguti, the Zulu family is also related to the Mpondo family through a woman, Umshato, you know. So, meaning that all these families essentially, essentially we are one family.
Do you know where Cyril Ramaphosa gets his uncle cattle from? I think they're from Uganda.
Yeah, they're Angola. Uganda, Angola.
I think Uganda.
Central Africa.
His son, Andile Ramaphosa, is married to a...
Okay. Uzlanda Wasbar. Now, hey Chantel Kosiamga Zugupi. Ooh, Chacha. I'm thinking about it and I'm trying to digest. Uguti, this whole race thing can disappear in the next 10, 15 years then.
With intention.
With intention.
Yeah.
This whole race war, this whole push and pull, this whole propaganda could disappear in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And we could really have a world with one people.
Not one. They'll have new divisions. But they won't be race.
There won't be race.
Yeah.
I could work with that. No, I really could work with that. There are going to be divisions anyway because that will never change. Whether I'm a China manje or a Mandia or a Belungu or there's something in between all of that.
Yeah.
But for the fact that Mapume Sende Lam, they will be what they are. Omlochwa, they will always be there. Oh, Tembe, they will always be there. And then we can find our divisions in craft, in skill, in
religion, spirituality?
I want us to touch on that. Because I believe race, religion is the same R. I think it's the same ill, it's the same poison. We'll tell you 2-1. I'm gonna make it 2-2.
Come on.
I'm gonna make it 2-2. I believe African spirituality is a new religion that's going to make African people stagnant again.
Yes. So ufake igoli lapho sekumele ngiqalele phansi futhi nami Christianity has done the Lord's work in lento esikhuluma ngayo. If I think of the various religious groups, the one with the most eclectic cultural mixing is Christianity. The way it's been spread, we can then look at. But a lot of mixed race couples I know are Christian. It tends to be rare to find mixed race couples who are Muslim, who are Jewish. I can't maybe speak about Buddhism as examples. Where possible, shout out to Bob Marley. Rastas have been able to also do that, but Rasta falls under Christianity as well because Junior Gong, Damian Marley also had a white mom. I think she was Miss World or something like
Miss
that.
Universe.
Miss Universe. Stunning woman. So he sits on that thing where Bob Marley went to and do the Lord's work. Number one, he planted in a very fertile black sister, Rita, and then he went to go and be like, let me go and shy spans, say reconciliation. Wapumu Junior Gong. Someone asked why African spirituality is getting so much of a spotlight. And the initial theory was this, and I heard this from a close friend, Ulysses. He said, our ancestors have been crying and praying and for many years. And unfortunately, the universe doesn't work in the time that we understand. You don't pray and then you're like, dear Lord, I pray for food, and then someone comes through the door. You may pray and the good Lord, whoever you believe in, might take you on a walk where you find a plant and it's got seeds, and those seeds need to be planted and that becomes the food. That was the one theory, that we are in a renaissance, a resurgence of where the cries to the universe are being heard, and that's why there's consciousness rising now, where children are falling depressed, not because they are depressed, but because the ancestors have finally gotten through to the higher source, and the higher source is speaking through the ancestors psychologically and saying, get out of this job, get out of this relationship, get out of this thing, and go through this process. We don't know what trauma this is, but the way you guys were moving was not right. You know, that's the one theory. The other theory is exactly the one you're raising, where someone is saying many of the oppressed are now leaving religion because they are seeing that it is a scam. And it is a tool, again, for the elite to be like, we will oppress you, we will rape you, we will take your resources, and then we'll give you a church, which will, number one, give you a name, Nelson, or Jacob. You can go through all the leaders of Africa with all their biblical names, so that we can teach you to turn the other cheek and to forgive. Not only that, we'll give them, these people, a Nelson Mandela with statues around the world, who showed us again the symbolism of Nelson Mandela is a better man than me because unlike my forefathers, he forgave.
He forgave them.
Don't you love the spirit of Nelson Mandela of forgiveness? So let's use these symbols.
Nelson Mandela every year.
So in the failure of Christianity, Islam to dumb down and numb and weaken, you spoke about the three evils. We need something new. It must feel new. It must feel relevant. But if you look at all the other touch points,
it's the same thing.
What do they have that is like forgiveness and turning the other cheek? What can Ubuntu? But you are the people of Ubuntu and peace. This is not African. Which is something I posit to Joshua Mapong about Ubuntu and peace. And his argument was, I believe in violence.
Yeah.
My Ubuntu doesn't say I'm meek and I do nothing.
I stand with that. I support that.
But the people selling
Ubuntu are selling it as a timid culture.
Because in Christianity there's violence. Joshua in the Battle of Jericho, there's huge violence in the Bible. Even Moses going to Egypt to free the Israelites.
It was a militant.
There were firstborns dying. There were locusts.
It was
There was carnage.
Yeah. It was all
but establishment
of Israel. But now even the existence of Jesus, the spread of the gospel of Jesus was militant.
Correct, with the Crusades.
With the Crusades.
If you look at African spirituality now, with the way it's being packaged, you're almost looking for, so who's the Jesus in African spirituality? And then they start going back to what's called paganism, which is where Christianity actually borrowed, for some would call it stole, some of these. I just don't know the names of the Herus and those people who you're like, no, but this Mary and Mother Jesus is something that we've had. This story of someone freeing someone, this story of tablets, the Ethiopian Bible. Oh, the people of Kush. This is our thing.
We've heard the story before.
But in everything you're selling in African spirituality, none of it is aggressively saying how do you counter the colonial oppression and how do you counter where religion has dispossessed of you. And that's where your controversy, I can support 100%, that people must be very, very careful of this new brand of African spirituality where not only are they going to give us a remixed Christianity that looks black, like the African leaders.
Sounds black, dresses black.
But on top of that, they're going to commercialize it and become rich. I can't enforce ilobolo intlawulo without buying inkomo nembuzi from Van der Merwe. I cannot celebrate my Africanness until I buy cloths from Abdul and Naidu. I cannot enjoy my African herbs unless I'm buying it from Inkunze Mnyama, which is owned by Indians and an Indian wholesaler, Lotus, where some of the white online stores today are selling sage. They are importing cloths with leopard print. But vest from China. Name data that are not being made by my people. So you realize that it's being commercialized and it's not even being commercialized by us.
By us. We don't own it.
But you call it African spirituality.
Like you can walk into any chemist, any shop, any I own it. But on that point of Uti, I strongly believe African spirituality is the new religion and somebody is making a killing out of it.
Correct.
You know? Africans never had a religion. Africans never had a meeting day for prayer and a meeting day for sermons and but this is what we are seeing today, and we are having conflicting schools of thoughts that speak about this African spirituality that leads me back to thinking, this is another form of Christianity.
Should we not take ownership? Should we not accept the formalization but try to own the value chain? So for example, the African calendar. For example, impepo, sage, incense, whatever you want to call it. For example, our materials, our cloths, hemp in the Eastern Cape. Be like, we acknowledge that this thing is being formalized. We will accept the formalization, the commercialization. But the IP has to come from us. And let us copy kosher. Let us copy halal. It's one of the things I've asked about the Zulu kingdom, that why can they not put IP on anything deemed Zulu? And no other country in the world is allowed to sell these things unless they pay a royalty. And say, look, let's accept it, because if we don't, someone will. There are people that are brilliant at building systems. Let us say, no, we will commercialize the African calendar and we will sell it, yes. And we will sell it to black people. But you then must hold us to account that the money made from this thing must be building the black nation. And not that we're buying African calendars from Amazon and it's enriched a white billionaire there who doesn't care at all about Africa. Make sure that, yes, we'll buy it, because the same way other religions exploit and suck from everyone, including black people, they take money from white people and they build in white spaces. Islam will take money from Muslims, but build in Indian, Muslim, or Arab spaces. So maybe accept African spirituality and acknowledge that I think Abba no Pen were right. But now the question becomes, before I go spend money uyotenga imbuzi for this ritual, before ngiyolanda inkomo from, before ngigqoke whatever cloth I'm wearing, my dashiki, where is it coming from? And if it's not coming from a place that is building me, then it's still not what we say is African spirituality, and it's just a remix of something else. But once it is, I'll gladly sweat, toil, pay, because I know tomorrow when my children cry, there's a fund. A corner. The same way there's an Islamic fund for relief. The same way there's a Jewish fund for pilgrimage travel.
I said once, Uguti, if as a community, I think we're here now with food. It must not have deep roof. And then every household keep 500 a month for a period of 5 years. Ube account yalla at deep roof. Would we still have unemployment issues at deep roof after 5 years of collecting 500 from each household?
It's impossible.
Would we still have lack of business at deep roof if we did that for 5 years? Would we still have children not having funds to go to school at Kloof if we did that for 5 years?
It's impossible.
But the problem here to Tina Bantu Abamnyama is that we are divisive people. We are unnecessarily competitive people. You said competition is healthy, competition is good, it helps us to grow, but the competition here is very, very, very sinister.
No, there's obviously toxic competition.
Yeah, our competition is very sinister. Utat when you might take him out or mind umhambela kugogo sibanibani umrolise ngayo. Umfweni mayithola umsebenzi or mind umyela kumkhulu sibanibani afente emsebenzini. When will we ever get to the point? Now, this is, I want to talk about generational wealth and how to build each other as a community, you know. There's money on this side and all these big houses in Santin and big cars and then there's a simple method of wealth that was left by our forefathers, inkomo, imbuzi, inkukhu, and all of that in Fuyo. Nomhlaba, you know, and nokudla kuphuma emhlabeni. In that context of truly applying African spirituality, what is our wealth base, or what should our wealth base be? Where should we focus our youth, our children? What should we teach them about wealth? Is it monetary? Is it in the bank? Or sifundisa ngesibaya sikhulume ngabantwana ngomgquba ngokulima? What's your approach? What do you think about that?
Ngicela ukushaya iscore bani?
Score 2-2, man.
2-2?
Yeah.
Ushaya amagoli out too fast.
No.
I don't know if you were able to catch up.
Ah, I see.
2 quick goals.
Yeah.
In the modern capitalist system, there cannot be financial freedom without financial bondage or slavery elsewhere. Number 1.
Because I stand by that. I truly believe that. In fact, this
even
is
in
how
the example
I
of it, Deep Kloof, before you answer, for Deep Kloof to be uplifted, they need to be taken from elsewhere. In the modern capitalist. Sorry, please continue.
I just put it like this. For us to compete fairly on the system, financial, economic system, we would need to get on a boat, go to Scotland, colonize a piece of land,
yes,
get rid of the people there, enslave them,
yes,
work our own economy into the land,
yes,
and then we can compete.
Correct.
With our colonizers.
That is what is fair.
That's what's fair.
Yeah.
That's what I believe. If we're going to do it here at home, no. These people are 100 years ahead of us. So we need to, if we're going to look at wealth from that perspective, we have to take from them in order to build for us to take back to them.
I've got a solution for that, by like impregnating the white woman. But we'll get to it later. This is my second goal. I'm not planning to. No, I would prefer to not leave my children any money when I die. What people call wealth, inherited wealth, generational wealth. My plan is not to leave my children with any of that. I'll expound on that. But maybe I'll sneak in one extra golnyana. Money today becomes the same story, which I don't think is true, but it's a nice story that's told. Money today becomes the same story as how our forefathers gave away land for a mirror. When you tell them So let me start with this. There can be no financial freedom without financial bondage elsewhere. The easiest one is exactly the one you're saying. Go and slave somewhere else. There's one we don't normally speak about, or no one actually touches on, which is enslaving yourself. I want to be financially free. I need to financially oppress someone else. Who will I financially oppress? What about me? So you see it as an example by the Pakistani, Somali, and Ethiopian spaza shop owners. The way they run their businesses is nothing short of slavery. 16 hours
self-imposed
in a hot container that is locked. It's a prison cell. To make 10 cent, 20 cent, 50 cent, you sleep there. They are slaves in that thing. But who will be financially free from that? Themselves. Well, some would argue that they fund groups and they have pimps. That's outside of that theory. Assuming that they're doing it for themselves, it's almost like you marrying a woman, having his temu, having children and working your land.
Exactly.
You are exploiting its child. Yes.
I'm exploiting my own kids.
I'm exploiting self for my wealth.
Yeah.
Even in the building of something like pyramids, which we're not doing anymore, I've always thought no one in the world today has enough money to rebuild the pyramids. But we do have enough labor. We would just need to exploit it.
Exactly.
We could build pyramids as long as we don't pay fair price. So it is possible to build crazy things when you remove the money element and you focus on...
What happened in Dubai? You think Dubai, that $1 million landscape and tourist attraction, how much do you think was invested in building that? Was it fair labor?
Forget Dubai, because that's a theory. The stadiums that were built in Qatar for the World Cup, it came up that it was slaves that were building the stadiums.
Exactly.
It was slaves that were building the stadiums.
The Qatar, Dubai was built by... People are complaining of the conditions in Dubai. They're living in one-cell rooms. But they're building these magnificent 7-star hotels.
India's got slaves. They call it the caste system. Africa's got
slaves. They call them indentured labor.
We have slaves today. If anyone goes on Google, Namhlanje, and you Google how many slaves, start here. How many slaves are there in Africa? Because you think slavery is over. So we need to consider the idea of enslaving ourselves. Because currently, specifically as Abantu Abamnyama, we do not have the skill, the tyranny, the heart, the animalistic ability to enslave others, but we can try and do it to ourselves. And by self, I'm not saying fellow black. I'm talking wena. I'm talking vuke ekuseni ngo-4 uhamba olima, uhamba ukhipha inkomo, also uzoclean indlu. In those acts, you've cut out a herdman, you've cut out a cleaner, you're homeschooling your kids, you've cut out a teacher. All of that can be quantified as money. And that is wealth. You have 5 kids, you give them superior education that if they went to a top private school would cost you 500,000 a year. You've done it. You've enslaved yourself so that your children can be better, smarter, and the second goal was the one where I don't want to leave my children money. And I'm linking it to this other goal of mine that you also claiming. When I give you 100 rand and you give me a cow, I've given you a mirror.
Precisely.
I've psychologically outmaneuvered you because the people that run the modern money system, it doesn't cost them the same amount of time, ingenuity, creativity, life, an aspect of their life for this mirror that it costs you.
To raise that cow.
For you to get that cow with your forefathers and your land, maybe it takes you 2 years. For me to get this 100 rand as a let's call it a rich white person, it's me giving a 20-minute talk. So the state of the economy, hey, 100 rand, give me a cow. Okay. I've taken 2 years of your life with 30 minutes of my life with the mirror. Worse, again, with some of these masters of the money system, they don't even work for that money. Yeah. Other people work give them the money, they take the money, they take your real wealth, your real assets for someone else's sweat, and they're the middleman that keeps everything. They took those people's lives, they're taking your life, but they keep the largesse of the benefit. But if you don't want to leave your kids money, what do you want to leave them? I would rather leave my children skills. The ability to create, manufacture, build, farm, grow. Don't put money on that, which means I will never go hungry. We speak of poverty now, but in the animal kingdom there's no poverty because they don't assign wealth to what. A chimpanzee in nature is not poor, but a black man in a shack is poor.
Okay, make sense.
But the chimpanzee doesn't have a farm.
But he has food.
He doesn't have a house, but he has food. Kanjani. So I would rather leave my children skills. I would rather leave my children information or access to information or the know-how of how to access specialized, especially information. Networks, which you normally leave with your name, which is where in the past, not really surnames, but let's call it names, where your name would carry wealth. Sanbona igama lami ulungelo wa ABBA. Ubaba. No, sondela mfana. Hey, ubaba wakho yara. Anything you want, mikasa sukasa.
A good name is better than gold.
So networks in terms of my name, the work that I do, the people that I meet, and where possible while I'm alive, getting my children to meet these people.
Involve them.
And when you have done that well enough, your children could own nothing, but they will have everything. And then the last one, through the networks and through the skills, will be access or the know-how to access opportunities. If you get these things right, you hear these stories of Donald Trump was a couple of $1 billion in debt. You can have nothing, but you have everything because there's something called the psychology of money. When you build the psychology of understanding what money is meant to be, which is a transfer of goods and services, and you understand the role players in this thing. I can go to Switzerland today, sleep in a 7-star hotel, give a talk, meet with the leaders there, come back having spent nothing. And you're like, because my value is here.
Is this.
There are people out there who will sweat and toil for me to be in business class in Switzerland amongst their people, engaging on ideas, sharing knowledge and information. House me wherever they house me and bring me back. Because my wealth is not there. And this is where I had to learn to not judge Abafowethu abashela ngemali. Because unfortunately they may not possess the wealth that I have. Their value proposition is I do things out there and then this is my wealth that is out here. It's like God. My God is there, whereas PENUEL's God is in here.
Yeah.
So I would rather leave that for my children. And in leaving that, it doesn't matter what monetary wealth I've built. It is in savings.
That's irrelevant.
Because if I leave them with that physical, and I don't leave them with the things I said, your children will die.
Yeah.
Drugs. They're going to kill each other.
You're for that money.
You want the type of child where dad left us 100 million and he's like, you guys can have it. And the other children that did not inherit or earn on their own, these other things, will die within 5 to 10 years and this child will make $1 billion. Kanjani? Ngoba yena wathi akafuni ifa lababa wakhe. Uthi ubaba gave me more than anything you will ever see here. And for me, that is the wealth that the world has given us, which we miss out. Nature, books, what, where other people are saying.
Nature, books, teachers, experience.
Human libraries.
Exactly.
People like yourself. Uguti, you will spend 20,000 Rand, your funda, when there's a human library here, which not only can you access the same information for free, you will access information that you won't find in those places for free. And while you're spending time with this human library, they will give you certain skills that, used accordingly. I spent 4 years with ABBA instead of in a tertiary. Saying name Komezuteti, saying Nomshaba, and I've got knowledge. And the people that would visit him, I know them, they know me. Because I decided to invest in a human library. And how I paid was saying, Baba, nothing else.
Service.
Don't teach me, don't show me. And while I'm here, mvula my every orifice to be like, I will suck in anything. And for smart women, because they are smart women. I spoke about they are smart women. Men and babon. A smart woman will come close and be like, I don't only want to learn from this man, I want him to give me a seed. Because some of the things he may teach I may not understand, but my seed will understand, and my seed might teach me. My seed, where I fall short, will fix and solve some of these things.
In fact, my seed will fix a whole generation yasekhaya because of interaction with this man.
100%.
Oh,
that's enough, right?
Oh,
Z4
lezinto lezi.
Kade ngishaya amagoli. I think it's score 5-2 manje.
Hey,
Ngibulele.
Leave your children skill. Leave your children opportunity. Leave your an ability to identify opportunity.
Yes.
Leave your children with your networks. And most importantly, leave your children with the mind that wealth is not what you see. It's not what you touch. It's not it's not out there. It's within here. For when my son was turning 7, when he turned 7 years old, I bought him a cow as a birthday present. 7-year-old boy, happy birthday boy, Today that cow has given birth and its calves have given birth. My son is counting his cows in 11s now. And I teach my daughter as well, what's more important, getting a job or owning your own business? And she says, she's 9. She says, no, owning your own business. And I ask her why. She'll tell you that because when you have a job, you're going to get paid a salary. And that money, you have to live off it and it finishes. But if you have your own business, you make your own money every day. You don't have to wait for someone to pay you. So these are the ideas I'm trying to indoctrinate in my children. Whenever I have something physical to do, building or whatever, my daughters play around. My youngest is to supervisor because she's always there, lifting bricks. Now you involved. I believe your 4 points, that is generational wealth. That's what I believe. I believe that money in the bank is a curse. I've seen so many people, the parents pass away, they inherit a lot of money, and suddenly the friends, omunye nomunye umngani wakhe drive a scooter. Lo uthengile iscooter, lo uthengile iscooter, lo uthengile iscooter, lo uthengile iscooter, sekuba iconvoy yescooter. With friends, it's a party every day. I remember once, komunye umuzi, 2 children are left behind, a boy and a sister. Lo agupati. And usele in the family house. The daughter took her money, bought herself an estate somewhere, bought amakhumbi, ama-venture, or wafake elayinini, open some chisanyama businesses, and then she went on with her life. The younger brother, he party animal. Gcwala amantombazana la endlini, gcwala abangani la endlini, yeyi ayikho into engenziwa la ekhaya. Now imali iyaphela bakwethu. Money is gonna finish. You can leave your children tens of millions. If you leave your child 100 rand, he's going to eat food for 10 rand. If you leave your child 1,000,000 rand, uzofuna ukuphuza utshwala ba 20,000. If you leave your child 100 million, uzofuna ukuyohlala eDubai aphuza utshwala be 25,000. You understand what I'm saying? Generational wealth is skill, ability, opportunity, network. It's identity as well on top of that. Because every time this boy grows up, abona le inkomo zasekhaya lezi, sinkomo zami, inkomo zakithi. So that brings back the sense of identity as well. No, uwashayile amanqaku ngizokuphikisa ngabo mina. Le 4 points ungishaye ngqo. That is generational wealth. My last question kuwe nayi, before singena.
You won't forget it.
I won't forget it.
Money grows on trees. There are people that are better off not getting money. We've got an entire show that is documented that's called I Blew It, where a person's life was much better
without the money,
before they got money. Money given in the wrong psychological state will destroy the person. Money grows on trees. Just to add on to that. Money doesn't grow on trees. Because you asked the question, I don't think I answered it. We need to figure out how money works, understand money, financial literacy, but more than anything, we need to understand that real value lies in nature. Money grows on trees. That's why you have commercial farms like ZZ2. Their money grows on trees. Spinach, cabbage. A cow is money. So if you could invest more in that than in this thing, grow your own money, grow your own medicine. Then you don't have to say, I don't have money to go to the farm. Grow your own medicine.
Grow it.
So I wanted to say that. Sorry, last question.
Money does grow on trees, I believe that. A bundle of cabbage weighs money in 15 rand. You plant 100 cabbages. How many bundles are there? How many 15 rands are there? Just waiting for you to go and sell. You know? This goes to parenting.
Sure.
Before we get to parenting,
come back in extra time.
A golden goal.
Because we're golden goal.
Usi done now, 2 goals in the extra time you win in France. I think it's the greatest societal ill right now. Many psychological ills, many psychosomatic problems, many identity crisis issues come from PENUEL uthanda ukushela. No ABBA uyashela. No Zwane uhamba eshela. Siyaqomeka. Yeba kwethu siyaqomeka phela sikhuluma kamnandi thina. Now, that leads to many problems esizibona namhlanje in our society. What's your take on umjolo?
What is umjolo?
Lokuhlekisana lo. Hayi girlfriend yami le, intombi yami le, siyahlekisana.
I'm not the right person to answer this question because I've made so many mistakes within the society we find ourselves in. We have been given the guiding North Star to avoid these societal ills. Be at the church, if you're a good Christian, no sex before marriage, you court your partner, you get married. Be it culturally. So the solutions have always been there. But because of the liberal agenda and so-called freedom and lack of accountability, even within these same structures. Because one of the beautiful things about Islam in this country, maybe in other places, is in Islam, when you deviate, they kick you out.
Yeah. Excommunication.
In South Africa, or in other groups, Christianity cultural, you still embraced. But they still embrace you, which means there's no accountability, which filters all the way up to political leadership. whenever I'm confused about something, I generally look to the animal kingdom. And I do not believe dating is natural, it's man-made. I do not believe marriage is natural, I believe it's man-made. But I do believe that unions, procreation, making children is nature. Where some of us have lost it is the lack of accountability once you enter someone's life. This holds for both men and women. And I say this in this generation now, you speak about African spirituality, I see it with this term, polygamy, polygyny, when the man has more than one wife. Amachi does feast his temple, but do not know the work
that goes behind it.
And I wish all the gents who are like, "Ay, Pela, it's not natural to be monogamous." I wish I could give them their wish. I wish I could be the guy in Aladdin, the genie. Now what comes with this table as an example is you've got, let's say, 2 wives for ease. Number 1, you must always go home. Where do you go? You've got 2 wives, they must both get equal treatment, equal resources. You must take care of these women as your firstborns. And then your other children that follow come after them. And you must carry that weight. If she's stressed, if she's frustrated, if there's something going on at home, that's on you. You cannot see other women elsewhere. You cannot go anywhere. Your whole life is at home. No, you... When that's where you're going. No. I see you spend an extra day with this one. No one holds accountability, including myself. You've been spending more time with this woman. I know, but I don't know if it's a file stress. No. You must spend time with this one as well. I don't know about seed. Yeah. The reasons FISA to have other women is because we've never fully taken ownership of one woman. Because muchos mami asinda. I'm winning the game, by the way. Now when it comes to umjolo, sorry, I went off on a rant and I'm not going to carry on with this team. We can discuss it on another day. If we treated umjolo, or the coming together of 2 different sexes together, as strictly as we should, it wouldn't be a thing. We'd know that as soon as I meet a girl. I mean, there was a Muslim cage fighter, I think he's a cage fighter, this guy. In a clip on TikTok, he says, he was speaking to a white British lady. And he was saying something about relationships. Like, oh no, that doesn't happen in my religion. It's like, what do you mean? He's like, when I see a girl that I like, I have to marry her. And the only way I can meet with this woman is I have to, when I don't speak to her, I go speak to her father. Oh,
okay.
I've seen your daughter. If the daughter's been spoken for, I'm out. If not, the father will go and present my case. There's this boy who came. If we're in the same vicinity, do you know this boy? If not, it's like, let's meet and see. Within a supervised environment, we will meet each other. We'll see if the families vibe. And then we'll allow the kids, so see if they vibe. But from this point on, anything we engage is for the purpose of marriage. Not to well, we are better, you're going to take me out on a date. Yeah, but maybe it's not really the guy. There's no accountability and there's no comeback. To a point where, even now, my body count and people catch feelings, specifically women. It's because they know. They know they are worth less. Not worthless, but worthless.
Worthless, exactly.
That's what do you mean? It's my body, but I'm not a phone, and that's why you're lying about how many men you've slept with. That's why I'm not keep speaking about virgins. But then I put up this mirror and I say to Amachi, if you want to marry virgins, after all, who must marry those girls? Who must marry those girls that you've gone and deflowered? God, you speak about it, no, Baba.
But umjolo
is an ill, marriage is an ill, even religion is an ill, purely because we don't respect the systems there, the structures there. Because there are consequences, but we are not held to account. If every girl, we spoke about this on the panel show, if every girl knew that if you sleep with a boy and you fall pregnant, umfana kuzomela akhokhe inhlawulo, kuzomela ashaywe. And the girl's like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
after we've done that, so shower. You're gonna lose our family name. You're not getting any of our support. Every girl would tiptoe around boys.
Yeah.
When a boy breathes, she'd be like, "Oh, kind of him."
Yeah.
For sec, I'm full of shower. But because there's no accountability,
I think it should go back to that.
and so that becomes tough.
And
because
by saying go back, I'm
space.
not saying let's go back to how our grandfathers used to live. No. I'm saying to accountability.
Accountability.
Responsibility. Own it. You did it, own it. I mean, I've got this belief you're good.
Charge the girls in trouble.
Exactly.
And watch if they'll go around getting pregnant. Charge them in trouble. Sure.
Sure. And then we'll see what works out of that. Because I've got this firm belief you're good in. If it ever happens with mina now and we get to the point you're good, I touch you, I'm already committed myself. I'm of that belief. Where are going to? I did say once ukuthi mina bonke labo sisi laba abamithele ekhaya 15 years a jail. But to not make it sound like I'm against women, amadoda khona 25 years here, 10 extra years. Because now nivumelene ngento eyi-one. I usually say when a pig meets a pig in the mud, which is more piggy? Now she falls pregnant.
Sure.
Now lamadota idagwa izinja. Ntombi, where were you?
Uhlangane naye kuphi lo mjethi?
Where were you?
Wakudlwengula.
Oh.
Cha kasa kanjani pho?
Bokuphi ntombi?
Abba, I need to go, man. Shut
Yeah.
it down. No, sorry, don't rush. I'm just saying.
No.
Please.
Siyakhona.
No, please carry on with Umjolo. This is very important.
Siyakhona. Now we have.
By the way, just I have to add this disclaimer, guys. So, I'm guilty of all the things we're raising here. I'm not of a moral superiority in any form. I think abantu abangilandela social media will know nengane ezu-7 from omama about 5. Angibashadanga omama. I don't believe in ukushada, at least in the current concept or framework that we have it now. I am guilty of all the ills of society. I had to realize that the mothers themselves are also guilty because I didn't violate them. So they also mustn't take the moral high ground of, but he didn't marry me. And it's like, but you allowed yourself to sleep with him and you agreed to have a child with him. On the accountability point, I am reviewing myself where I've fallen wrong, where I was taught wrong, where society influences me wrong. And I will say this, which is my hope. Before we get to better system structures, here to just be more honest. The truth is very dangerous and difficult, and it causes a lot of pain and harm. And you miss out on a lot of really nice things by saying to Sisi, this is my stance, this is where I stand. But when she comes later, she says, my protection today on social media is any woman who falls pregnant with my child, who complains. The whole of social media be like, uyasidakelwa-ke wena ngoba sonke siyamazi uPENUEL uneqiniso ukuthi uphila kanjani. So angeke usho ukuthi wakubambe ekhoneni what whereas other men, and in the absence of you being honest, can some of us out there rather throw out a lie that protects that women, all men cheat, all men hide their women and approach them in that way. And from men, please know she's slept with other men, even if she claims she's a virgin. Understand that you will have to pay all the things you're unsure, expect the worst, and then engage. And if you're not ready to engage because we are Saba, force her to have that conversation or for the families to meet. But let's rather work off of where the worst, and then let's engage. Because right now, Sonke is she's not going to tell you about her miscarriages, her abortions, her morning after pills. When you guys have been struggling for 5 years to fall pregnant, maybe if you're lucky to have you ever had an op? Have you ever? Because she lied. So
And we lie as well.
Sidinga iqiniso, and iqiniso, even if we're not going back sankofa to the ways of the past, iqiniso will hopefully take us to a better future.
Yeah, exactly.
And then from there, I hope there'll be less pain and damage. And a woman will meet you and be like, "But I mean, singing alala nabafana banje, nengane kanje, ekhaya, kwenziwa kanje, ubaba ngamqambela amanga ukuthi mina ngitshitshi." So ngicela wazi from there ukuthi as we move forward. And then you'll tell me if I ever get called again, so qala nje ngokukhipha le file.
Yeah.
Ish, okay, maybe not. I don't want my family to see me this way. You're like, then we're playing games here.
Yeah.
But if I engage you, she's gonna lie to her family, and then which means we're not gonna be able to raise this child together.
That this relationship is already intact.
Because at least it's neqiniso. Abantu abamnyama, I think, I stand to be corrected. The number one thing holding izwe labantu abamnyama back is the lack of truth.
Indeed. No, we may stand to be corrected, but I stand by that. Ukungabi neqiniso is the cause of all, and this is me about the truth. Truth is the biggest problem, but this truth that is the biggest problem is divided into 4 categories: the lack of truth, the ignorance of truth, and the denial of the truth. Because the truth is always there. Last question before Sivalala, Sizoham. What is culture and is culture rigid?
I fona mi phahla. No, sorry, I'm thinking.
What is culture and is culture rigid?
So when you started the race, I went back to English and the definitions. And Abelungu have come up with these terms for culture and what it means. And some play around with the term because at the beginning it's got cult. You know, my understanding of culture is it is a way of living by a group of people that is distinguishable from others, that is cultivated over time through certain structural beliefs, but also just through life. So part of your culture could be Christianity, African spirituality. Part of it could be we like slaughtering. Before, when children enter a home, they have to kneel, sanbona njani, and then you piece that all together and you're like, this is different from how other people live. So in the easiest way possible, it is a way of living, but it can be informed by these things. And because of that, by design, it is impossible for it to be rigid. And the one thing in Limazayo with black people is because black people were traumatized through colonization and apartheid in South Africa, we never had a chance to allow our culture to evolve. We had very malicious people entering our culture and offering counsel, which became destructive to our people. Today, I spoke about this thing of we call this African wear, but it's imported from China, and then we call it our culture. So it's been poisoned. It wasn't allowed to evolve, and now that we're trying to heal, many people are trying to jump back to what we had before without realizing the environment was different. And very few people are trying to imagine where we were and imagine if we were not disrupted and where we'd be. So, for example, we wouldn't have been colonized, we wouldn't have had apartheid, but other nations would have traveled to come here. We would have, in various ways, engaged and exchanged silk, rice, spices, guns, to give them pieces of land. We would have procreated with them, we'd have mixed-race children. We would have started traveling to their nations. They would have taught us ships or how to build ships. We would have had the aeroplanes, but our culture would have evolved because a healthy culture is one where it adds value to your way of life. As long as it takes away from your way of life, it can be a culture, but you should not embrace it as your culture.
It's stagnation.
Every time you have to celebrate a Thanksgiving, a wedding, a funeral, anything to do with your culture, there are people not of your culture getting rich, while people of your culture are getting poor. That cannot be something that you embrace. And outside of the puppet custodians of African culture in this country, people need to look to real practitioners and people that love you. People where if you call in Shawuli, Lobolo, Mshadu, Mabo, Sizobonga, where they come to you and they say, if hold on to the principle. The principle is this: hambiye kwa tombazana, nabagini hambiye, And if they are problematic, I will tell you now, do not marry that girl. Because they will bring you into this toxicity that you are running away from. And then those of us with platforms on social media must scream these things over and over until the seeds get planted somewhere. And fathers and mothers in their homes are going to be like, we know what it's said out there, but in our home, in our home, if ingane to falls pregnant, we start off with lectures. We have lectures. We bring the boy in, we bring their family, like, actually, this is how we raised our daughter. We never taught her this. That was our mistake. So, daughter, you're pregnant, we're celebrating, but we need to give this lecture. This was a fuck up on our part. Or, we actually raised the right and she deviated, and we're going to need her to stand on the podium in front of all of our stakeholders and say, I'm sorry, temptation and we were drinking. Where did you learn alcohol from? You were in the streets. Okay. Now that we've done that, we're celebrating. We will help as far as possible. Boy, this is the family you're marrying into. Can your family also present on their side their beliefs so that we understand what we're dealing with? And if we deviate, we'll only meet ngengane. We'll have our 50%, you'll have your 50%. But this is where we stand and we move forward so that Inganya Laikai will teach her children, future children, how she was raised, and we create a new culture.
If you were president for a day,
assuming a president has power.
Yeah, assuming a president has powers. You're president for one day. This is an old school question. If you were president for one day, what would you do? One decision.
One. Only one.
Only one decision. What would you do? 9 o'clock in the office in the president for one day only.
What is the objective?
I don't know.
President of South Africa?
President of South Africa.
What's the objective?
To make the country better.
One decision.
One legislative, executive decision.
It's one of two things, I think, off the top of my head. Either we scrap and rework the Constitution, which is meant to be the Bible and the founding principle of this country. Or the second one is I enforce in law, at least for the next 50 years, aggressive, accountable, consequential meritocracy in everything that we do in this country. So everything from sports to, but women have been left out, but black people have not been allowed. If you don't qualify,
if you merit,
forget legacy, forget that you were left out of the economy. The black child who wants to compete must, through all their adversity and struggles and growing up in a shack, must meet the white child in suburbia with their privileges to compete. This is a suggestion to try and fix the country. Either scrap the Constitution and rework it, including accountability and making sure that our laws are enforced and fair and just, and we have proper redress and we ring fence the land. That will all happen in the Constitution because it's one decision. Ring fence the land taken, give the land to the people, overhaul education, make sure that we have skills trained, but that's in the Constitution. The second part is saying this is one law, and even after I leave, it is enforceable. It's been sent to the UN. For 50 years, you will have to wait till 50 years' time, but every aspect of society will be run by merit. And no one who is there by merit, because they are the most qualified, the best, the fastest, the sharpest, will be fired as of immediate, including maybe myself. I am not the best president, but now this law stands.
Yeah,
and now the best president is going to take over.
No, I love that. I can work with that. You have my vote.
Amen. Hallelujah. Ayalewa AMLAK. Thank you so much, brother.
No, asingakaqedi sayiqala. Siyabonga. Give thanks for the time. Give thanks for listening. So loko sibonana. Most likely.